from the Gatton staff for being here as well. Just to remind everyone that we are social distancing in the chamber. I'd like to also remind everyone to switch off your mobile phones. We have had a later meeting today because we had a Crime Corruption Commission Integrity webinar on this morning, so hence the later start. So what I might first do is ask everyone to be standing. And we'll just take a short time just to reflect on those that have passed or those that have been unwell in our community. We don't have any minister with us today, so I'll just lead the council in prayer. Father God, we ask you to bless and comfort those in our community who are experiencing sickness, loss, or just uncertainty and unease. We thank you for the ability to be here today in this chamber, despite the whole COVID situation that remains upon us, but does appear to be easing, which we're grateful for. We ask that you continually watch over this community, that you give leaders wisdom, and our health authorities, in particular our frontline people, resilience, as we do not know how long lives and livelihoods may be impacted. We pray for rain, Father God, nice soaking rain to fill our dams, to grow our crops and to just refresh and renew us. Today we ask for guidance and wisdom to make responsible decisions. We ask for courage too, as sometimes the right decision is not the easiest. I thank you for our councillors, our staff, and ask that you continue to keep us on the path, ever mindful that we are merely custodians of the land and that it is an honour to serve. Amen. Leave of absence. No leave of absence. Condolences, get well wishes. 3.1, we've got a recommendation that letters of condolences be forwarded to families of the recently deceased. Moved by Councillor Holstein. Got a second, please. Councillor Hagan. All those councillors in favour. Carried. Thank you, councillors. 4.1, 4.2, declaration of material personal interest. Also declaration of conflict of interest. As we just heard on the webinar a little while ago with the Crime Corruption Commission, having conflict isn't a bad thing. We just need to be mindful and we need to declare it. So at this stage, I haven't received anything. Mr. CEO, no? Okay. We do realise too that from time to time things crop up during the discussion and debate. Item 5, mirror minute. There is no mirror minute. Item 6.1, confirmation of the ordinary meeting minutes for 22nd of April. So there's a recommendation that they are true and correct. Moved by Councillor Hagan, seconded please. Councillor Bella. All those councillors in favour? Councillors. Confirmation of the special meeting minutes which was held on the 8th of May. I'll take them as being read and confirmed. We're going to move for that too, please. Moved by Councillor Cook. Seconder, Councillor Hagan. All those councillors in favour? And it's carried. Thank you. No business arising from minutes, nor receival of committee reports as minutes, nor are there any deputation presentations. So item 10.1 is a summary of the council actual financial performance versus the budget. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll take the report as read and hand over to our Chief Financial Officer to perhaps talk council through it, and then if there's any questions or comments, please feel free.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as mentioned, take the report as read. In relation to the summary of the actual performance to budget as at 30 April, did want to highlight that whilst we are tracking well, the forecast for the remainder of the year will be impacted by COVID, and the budget review presented to this same meeting highlights the impacts to the change operating condition and capital works program as a result of that. And I did want to just address and provide some additional information in relation to the employee costs and the comment regarding overtime as a result or as part of the result of that. So in preparing the 2019 budget, Council did look for savings in several areas, and overtime was one of those areas that was highlighted for reduction. Unfortunately, with the bushfires this year requiring outside hours, emergency response, additional roadside and park mowing following the heavy rains earlier this year, the current EBA conditions, which we cannot change, and several other major events such as Spring Festival and Christmas carnivals occurring outside of normal business hours, we've incurred additional overtime which hadn't been initially anticipated. So that's a big part of the reason. I just want to provide some information there.
Any questions, comments from councillors? No, can we move on a second up? Moved by Councillor Wilson, with a second please. Councillor Hayden, was councillors in favour? It's carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 10.2 is the register of cost recovery and commercial fees and charges. Over to you again, Jodie.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'll take the report as read, highlighting that the revenue is forecast as lower for the 2021 financial year compared to the current financial year, again as a major result of COVID, unfortunately for our economy, due to a number of reasons with impacts on infrastructure charges, development assessments, closed facilities and the like, as well as a food licence extension which has been provided as part of the financial relief measure earlier adopted by Council. You will see the food licence. Want to highlight that that fee has had a slight increment change, however that fee won't be charged and that will just flow through to future years. There were 3 new fees, 2 cost recovery fees and an additional weed to the herbicide subsidy. And for the most part, the fees have gone up by the set parameter of the 2.5%, which is in line with cost recovery.
Questions, comments? No, can we move on? Moved by Councillor Bellard, second please. Councillor Wilson. All those councillors in favour of the recommendation? Current, thank you. 10.3 is budget review and the updated long-term financial forecast.
Right. Thank you all again. So we'll take this report also as read. And just wanting to mention that the reduction in surplus which was forecast has taken, we have taken quite a hit to the bottom line, as we can see, which will have an impact on available funds and level service moving forward. However, we are still on track to finish the year with a small surplus and forecasting that moving forwards to continue to work hard and improve that bottom line position.
Questions, comments? Going to move on. Moved by Councillor Cook, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those councillors in favour? Carried, thank you. 10.4 is remuneration for councillors 2020 to 21. CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report has been written to confirm Council's previous recommendation to me that councillors would prefer not to take the remuneration increase that's due to them from 1 July of this year. They would prefer to stay with their current remuneration level based upon the fact that we're looking to reduce expenses obviously in terms of our response to the impacts that COVID has had on our bottom line and will have on our bottom line next year, as you've just seen. So the way that this actually works is that if councillors don't want to take the increase, there needs to be a resolution. Otherwise, the increase would flow through naturally. If you don't mind, I will ask Corinne if she'd like to add anything. She's the expert.
Thank you, CEO, through the Chair. The only thing is that the resolution is very specific, councillors. As the CEO has just said, you do need to state that you don't wish to take the increase and then to state exactly what the payment would be for the financial year, hence the 2 parts to the resolution.
Thanks. Councillor Hayden.
I'm just happy to move.
Got a seconder? Councillor Olszewski. Further comments? Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think it's a common sense decision, and I think it's very important that we show this sort of leadership in this space. Our overall budget's going to take hits in a number of areas. Who knows what the future holds for our organisation, so I think it's a really important part of us showing strong leadership in knocking back this increase in pay.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hayden, seconded by Councillor Olszewski. All those councillors in favour of the recommendation, and it's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. 11.1, Group Managed People and Business Performance Monthly Update.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon, councillors. I'll take the report as read. I just would like to highlight a couple of items for you. One in relation to the business continuity plan, that we are continuing to use that framework to manage the exit of staff from the workplace, maintenance of staff in terms of remote working, and also the potential to bring the staff back into the workplace when the social distancing restrictions are lifted. Procurement continues to be an area of keen focus for us, so we are looking at providing a number of resourcing in that area to ensure that we can create that consistent and standardised documentation and templates to support the organisation in their procurement processes. I note February and March showed a distinct increase, some of the highest months in terms of CRMs, in terms of contact through our HR department IT requests, that this has dropped down now in April. And I guess that, aligns with the request for support in terms of managing our response to COVID. And just noting finally that ICT continues to function well in terms of supporting our dispersed workforce, and noting that we have had with people out of the office a savings of $3,000 per month on printing, which is good to see.
Sorry, what's the last bit?
$3,000 per month on printing costs with people being out of the office. So that's something that is worth noting, and we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Got a mover? Moved by Councillor Holstein. Someone like to second that, please? Seconded by Councillor Cook. All those councillors in favour? Carried. Thank you. 11.2 is the council policies and guideline for approval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, I'll take this report as read. As we have previously discussed, these items, these 4 policies are the ones particularly of importance to councillors, and it was timely to review them at the beginning of the new council term. Those being that the acceptable requests for advice and information policy, of course outlining the relationship between staff and councillors in terms of providing information and providing advice. The second one is the expenses reimbursement and provision of facilities policy to councillors, and in the Act we need to document that in a policy as to what those provisions are to councillors. The Code of Conduct, very timely after our seminar this morning to run through that again, and that is in line with the mandatory Code of Conduct set by the state. And the final one there is the confidentiality guideline. The feedback that was provided by councillors at the workshop has been included in these documents. Answer any questions?
Great. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I'd like to move it, but also just after we did see that webinar from Triple C, I'd just like to acknowledge that through the CEO, the amount of work that Corinne has done and the team's done on putting this together. I mean, we said it before, the governance team seems to keep us informed all the time. These documents seem to be ahead of a lot of others from what I've gathered talking to, and they're always up to date, and as we saw again today, we have all that information already, and that's what populates all these documents we get, so I just want to say they're doing a good job.
Informed and on the straight and narrow.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, move by Councillor Hague, got a seconder, please. Councillor Wilson. Most councillors in favour of the recommendation of the adoption. It's carried, thank you. 11.3 is the councillor representation on committees and also groups.
Thank you very much. Through the Chair, councillors, as we've discussed, there's a number of groups and committees that council has representatives on, and those are listed in this report today. As we've had some discussion around these, they're generally based on historical arrangements and aligned with portfolios as well. There's a couple, I guess, that hadn't quite been resolved coming into this meeting, and there was one that was missed out, which will be amended in the minutes, which was the Friends of the Cemetery one, with the inclusion of Councillor Holstein as well as Councillor Wilson. The 2 ones that needed some further information or further representation was Spring Bluff, and then a conversation around the Forest Hill Progress Association as well.
That's right, councillors. So I'm assuming that councillors have had a discussion amongst themselves. So in general, I guess they're quite happy with the layout of the proposed representation as is. Yep. And so to fill in the blanks, Councillor Hagan.
I asked that I was taken off the Forest Hill committee there to open it up for discussion. I'm happy to continue, but in the experience over the last term, that's the only actual community group that we have a delegate on, so to speak. And often, as we heard during the campaign too, most of the community groups would like to see more councillors attend on an occasional basis. So I would have thought, seeing as the only community group, maybe we should not have a specific delegate, but allow it for any councillor that wanted to turn up, as all the other ones are. And maybe the diaries could just have an FYI when any of these community groups are having a meeting, and the available council could make themselves available.
That's pretty sensible. Councillor Wilson said the other day about that very comment that if you had known it was in your calendar, it would actually attend available. So I think that's just smart. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, and for me, I think there's a number of these community groups and progress associations and things, and I think it should be in all of our diaries. And for me, it's just about dropping in. It might be once or twice a year just to let them know that you're supporting them. Probably not overly to have an active input unless they ask for it, but just to meet all the community members and for them to know that they've got your support if they do need something. So I think that would be a good way forward. I think we probably should, if we do go down that path, make contact with the Forest Hill Progress Group and just say that's where we're going. You're still going to be well represented, but it won't be by a particular councillor, it'll just be in general, just so we're ahead of the game there.
Councillor Holstein?
Look, I support the comments by Councillor Hagan and Wilson on the Forest Hill one. I think it's good for time to time to all councillors to pop in and listen to their meetings and see what work they actually do in our community and help where we can. And many of us do go to a lot of those Progress Association meetings from time to time and pop in and see if there's any issues that they want to discuss with elected members. So I think that's smart. As to the Spring Bluff Committee, and obviously that needs two representatives in line with the deed of agreement between Toowoomba Regional Council, Lockyer Valley Regional Council and Queensland Rail, and Councillor Polashevsky being the portfolio person for tourism, he's obviously on there first. I have been on that committee for, I think, many years. And it's an absolutely fantastic committee to be part of because it brings a lot of people into our region, particularly during the Carnival Flowers in Toowoomba. And I know we get lots of overseas visitors and it gives us the opportunity as Lockyer Valley to promote our region. Even though people may be visiting to see the Carnival Flowers in Toowoomba, given that one side of the railway line is Lockyer and the other is Toowoomba, I think it's an advantage to us to sort of promote our region to get those people to come down into the Lockyer Valley more. And I also feel that maybe it's time for a different elected member to step up and be on that committee because they might have some new ideas and things. And I know that I've been on it for a long time and I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I don't want it to be just a foregone conclusion that I'm going to be on that committee. I just think it might be worthwhile for one of the boys to put their hand up.
Yeah, so I know Councillor Holstein was still down there for a proxy.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to
Still
do
happy for
that.
that.
Happy to do that, given that I know so much of the history about what's happened and different committees, because they change obviously every term.
Thank you, Councillor Bella.
I was happy to go on Spring Bluff.
Great.
Also, I noticed that the Equine Collaborative, I'm actually listed as a proxy for Jason, but it's not up there too.
Okay, yeah.
And in regards to Forest Hill, if we decided to have a dedicated delegate, because looking at my delegations there's not a heap of them. I'd also have time to do Forest Hill if we went that road, but if we don't want to go that way, that's cool.
And also, do we need another rep for the Friends of the Centre?
Oh, yes, it's mine too. Yeah, with Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, it was just an error, that one.
Alright, okay. So, Spring Bluff, it'll be Councillor Polashevsky, Councillor Bella, Councillor Holstein, you're happy still to be proxy. The Equine Collaborative, Councillor Bella, you said your proxy for Councillor Cook. Friends of the Cemetery should be Councillor Holstein, Councillor Wilson. Is that correct? Yep. And Forest Hill will remove that, but we will make contact with Forest Hill and let them know the reasoning. And it would be good for, we'll ask Kerry and Kayla to actually put the meeting dates in our diaries and maybe also make contact with some of the progress groups as well. So at least it's in our calendars and FYI. Councillor Wilson?
I would suggest we do that today,
Yep. Smart.
just from previous experience.
Yep, okay. So I don't have a mover or a seconder as yet. So moved by Councillor Holstein, seconded by Councillor Hagan.
Just one other correction to Madam Mayor, that Together 4341 had a name change last year. It's Together for Lockyer,
Oh, okay. That's good.
to cover the whole region.
Yeah, thank you for that.
If I may add to that, Forest Hill Committee also asked that they could have their name changed to Forest Hill Community Development Association.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep, okay. That's great, thank you. Okay, with the additions and the changes and the corrections, moved by Councillor Holstein, seconded by Councillor Hagan. All those in favour of the recommendation? Thanks, councillors. 11.4 is the operational plan and third quarter performance.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So, this is the legislative requirement whereby we report on the operational plan, tasks and actions. And we do that each quarter, as councillors would know. So, what I would propose to do, if it suits councillors, is to run through it by exception. If that's the way you'd be happy to do it that way. So we could run through and pick up all of those.
Red.
Red.
Anything that's red.
Red is good. Good to pick up, not good. So are you happy to do it that way? Okay, so the first one that's actually red is 5.7.2 on the first page. And that's about a review of the local laws. And I'll be happy for any of the content experts and lawyer staff to jump in. I'll explain, but if there's anything I'm missing out, please just jump in and let me know. So I think this has essentially been put on hold because although we have achieved some reviewing some of the local laws. We did caravan camping, we did the cane trains recently, but I think that to do this properly it needs a holistic review of all local laws, because originally, some time ago now, many years ago, we adopted the suite of local laws that came from the state, and that included a number of local laws that had perhaps not so much relevance to the region as in the cane trains. So we've tidied those obvious ones up, but I think there are probably some changes to be made to modernise the local laws, make them easier to implement and to look at how they operate within our region, because they're all about good governance, and to have those to ensure that they're effective, they need to be modern and easy to implement and easy to understand. Any comments on that?
And not something the size of War and Peace.
And not something the size of War and Peace, absolutely. So,
And there's through the chair, there's a large engagement process to undertake with that. The animal management one alone will take a long time to work through. There's lots of complications within it. So it is a piece of work that does need to be done holistically rather than the tinkering at the edges, which is we've just been fixing the problems as they arise. But there's an awful lot of engagement that goes on with this process. So it is a longer term. I'm not going to say costly, but it will cost some dollars because there will be engagement and the public interest testing that is required to go along with such a exercise will be significant.
Okay. So please feel free to just ask any questions as we go through. The next one is 5.8.1, which is implementation of the property rating business system. Again, I'll defer to content experts, but essentially this one it was deferred because we ended up there were two major IT projects. One was upgrading the property rating system, the other one was transferring to the cloud. So we've done, on our supplier's recommendation, we've gone to the cloud first, and that was, you'll see in the monthly report, that was finalised on the 16th of March and actually went very smoothly, but it was quite a large project. So this one has been deferred now for 12 months for two reasons. One is because it was behind anyway, and it was originally we thought we were going to do that one first and the cloud second, but it worked out the other way, and that's okay. And the other thing is that this is quite a costly project. So we actually think we need to defer it from the point of view of our capital expenditure. That's about it, yes. And we can live without it for the next 12 months. One of the things that we have been as an organisation is at the leading edge of some of these upgrades in our relationship with Technology One. And I think we've made a conscious decision to probably step back from that because it does cost you more. And if you're the sort of one of the lead agencies in terms of implementing upgrades, it tends to be more costly and time consuming, particularly with staff resources that might be required. Okay, so that's the reason. Yep.
Okay. 5.6.1.
Yep. Okay, so this has essentially been delayed because of COVID. We were moving on to stage 2 of our organisational effectiveness review, and this was one component of that. And one of the recommendations from the organisational effectiveness review was actually implementing a leadership development program. We had started that, but we've essentially delayed that for the moment because obviously we're working through the impacts of COVID, we're working through our new budgets and our new structures. So it seems sensible for the moment to delay that, but it won't be a long deferral. It's obviously a very important part of, as the CCC said, developing the right culture for the organisation. Okay.
5.1.4.
5.1.4, intended. Okay, I might hand this one over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr CEO. Through the Chair, as Anna had alluded to earlier, the procurement area is still an area of great need and high risk, and we are working through that. We now have a coordinator in place who is working through all the recommendations out of the review from last year and also the internal audit recommendations as well. We are still down some resources in that area. We don't have an advisor. We went out to market and could not recruit an advisor appropriately. So we are looking at redeploying some resources internally to give some assistance. We've essentially got 2 components. We've got to get through the business as usual stuff we have at the moment to allow our new coordinators the time to look at the strategy and look at some of those recommendations moving forward. I guess councillors also, we are looking at a very big change management process here. So it will take some time to get it solidified. We don't want to come in and snap change everything and then no one understands it or can follow it either. So it's a longer term prospect, and we're working through the strategy, and we'll bring back a definitive plan to council and to the audit committee as well, who are very interested in this area as to how we're going to move forward with it.
Gatton Sanitary, the expansion 4.2.5.
I'll defer that one to Angela, please.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. 4.2.5. Basically, that one there is a rescoping our this year's budget, where we brought online stage 2 of the cemetery upgrade works. The intention was to undertake those works next financial year. An opportunity arose where we brought those forward. So that will certainly be corrected in a budget review process.
Can I just say, Angelo, that I'm out there regularly these days and the cemetery looks lovely. Very, very peaceful, very lovely. Okay, yeah, I must have missed that one.
4.2.8, Angela, if you don't mind, I'll defer that one to you as the active transport plan.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Again, commentary on this topic. Due to COVID and also a vacancy of our Manager of Infrastructure Planning, we're looking to delay the delivery of this project to make sure we get it right, Madam Mayor. We're proposing to delay that activity into next year's operational plan. You will certainly be scoped around a forum which we will set up with our industry groups and affected parties in the community, and certainly be a collaborative approach with council and the community moving forward with active transport.
It's funny that, because I've been on the barrel about that one, and it's not on my paperwork, it's dropped off.
Oh no, it's certainly certainly our vision in the future there, Madam Mayor.
That's good, that's great. 1.3.1?
Yes, it is. So 1.3.1, review and update closed circuit television related policy. Essentially, look, this one has really been put on hold because it probably doesn't have the urgency that other projects within the organisation actually have. So I think, as the comments say, we did actually commence with the majority of the work to have been completed in the first quarter of this year, but that's been put on hold because of so many other things that have happened around COVID particularly, and other projects that we see as more important, but it obviously will be completed. And it will be completed this financial year.
Yep, that's good. Are there any other items that aren't red, doesn't matter what colour they are, that council specifically want to raise? Councillor Wilson? Yeah,
I've got a few. I've got a bit of a list. Some have been covered and some haven't, so just bear with me as I work through them. First one was 1.4.2, and that's around the current arrangements with community and sporting groups on the use of council facilities. And I note there that it says rescheduling expected, and that's fine, but I just think, you know, this issue has been bouncing around council now, well, probably for the whole 4 years that I've been here anyway, and I think perhaps now's a really good time to pull the trigger on progressing this, because, and I say that because I think we've got some resources available now in that space because of the COVID, and a lot of the, you know, day-to-day things that some officers are doing are probably on hold, and also in the community and sporting group space, the same thing. Most of them are not very operational at the moment, so they may have some time as well to, I think it's a really good time that we're trying to advance those conversations and arrangements. So, and, you know, we're all well aware about our budgetary constraints moving forward, so it might be a good time to really look at that and press forward, I think.
Happy to comment on that one. We were actually discussing that this morning, so I might hand over to the relevant general manager, Amanda, to make some comments.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in response to your query, Councillor, I've reviewed the draft matrix that's been prepared and have actually requested that some additional information be included in that, particularly in relation to in-kind assistance that's provided, so we can have a holistic view of the support that Council's offering to each of those groups, and also to understand and ensure that there's consistency. So it's my intention to have that body of work completed in the later quarter of this year, then for Council to consider that as part of a further budget review.
Amanda promised me before 31 December of this year, the entire matrix will be done and completed and reviewed by Council with a strategy moving forward.
That's great. I think we're all keen to get the finish line there. I fully know it's going to get right, but I think now's a really good time, so that's great.
Yeah, others?
Righto, next. I just had a comment around, and actually got the answer to this during the week in the portfolio meeting. It's 1.6.1, it was around the disaster exercise. I just noted the budget said within operational, but I do believe it's going to be changed to budget underspend, because, and that makes sense because that exercise obviously isn't going ahead. So that was another one. 2.5.1, that's around the GWIS side, and just the wording on that being work with the proponents to facilitate the industrial development. Well, to my knowledge, there now really are no proponents, so I would suggest that one's, I mean, it says rescheduling, but I would suggest that that's actually complete. Because I think it's being muddied with another item on the plan.
Yeah, it has. So that's the major expansion area that we're talking about. So Amanda can fill us in on the detail, but we're actually doing a study on the major expansion in the industrial area which incorporates GWIS.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct, Mr CEO. I will also outline that Ernest Young are also undertaking a project in relation to that, which Council advocated for a long time to get funds from the government for that. So certainly that work will feed into the work that Strategic Planning is doing in relation to the Gatton North major industrial investigation area work that we've got a draft report for at the moment.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that work is covered in a different item in the operation plan somewhere. I don't know the number.
It is.
Yeah,
you're right. So this is really morphed into that, because you're right, there are no components at the moment that we're actually working with in terms of the sale of or the development of that particular land.
Yeah. That's fine, it's been covered. 3.6.1, and this is around the identify and develop the energy management plan for council. And my question there was, or my statement, I guess, was I believe, you know, it's showing no risk, it's showing as green, but I believe we've got some issues with some of our solar initiatives or solar panels that are being installed. So I'm not sure where we're at with that, but I would have thought that they're potentially a risk in that we've got a plan, we've acted on that, we've installed some solar stuff, and I don't think it's sort of working as good as it probably should be.
Can I take that one on notice? Is that something I'm not aware of? So we might look at that through the facilities function.
Certainly, through the Chair, Councillor Wilson, I am aware of some of our facilities over the last 12 months have had issues with solar panels. One in particular has been the Lockyer Cultural Centre. They're online as of December last year, so they are functioning, and certainly the part of the panel is to review our initiatives across council, a lot of our facilities, to see where we can achieve those expected efficiencies moving forward.
Yeah, the last one I had was 5.7.1, and that was just around the business continuity plans. I think this is a really a good news story for council because, where will I find it? I believe that we had a budget item around $40,000 to basically get this work carried out by an external consultant to get some of this, or external resources to get these plans in place. But obviously the development of COVID-19 really basically threw us into a real life example, and I believe that our governance team will manage to pull together these plans in-house, which I think for me shows two things. I think it's great they're able to do that, and I believe they're functioning quite well. But also too, I think it could be a real learning for the organisation that we're probably need to back our officers at times and trust that they've got the ability to do these types of things, rather than we seem to have a real appetite for rushing out and getting external consultants to perhaps do some work that at times we can probably do in-house. So I think it's great that we've done, and it's great that it's working, but also I think maybe moving forward is something we can really take on board, so before we rush out and spend external money to make sure we can't do these things in-house.
Okay, thank you. No, your point is taken and well noted.
Okay, got a mover and a seconder, please. Mover. Someone? Councillor Hagan, seconded by Councillor Bella. All councillors in favour of that recommendation. Carried, thank you. 12.1, Community and Regional Sincerity.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon, councillors. I'll take the report as being read. However, there's a couple of things that I'd just like to bring to your attention. Just in relation to the Sustainable Water Project, so we've recently been granted approval to extend the completion of the detailed business case due to COVID-19 by the 30th of September. Furthermore, it's National Volunteers Week this week, and I just wanted to alert councillors to the fact that in relation to our VIC volunteers, we still are actually engaging with them and thanking them for their contribution for us to deliver that service to our visitors and to our community. Our library staff have done a great job in moving to an online platform to provide services to the community. Councillors may be aware that the library staff now run 2 story time sessions live, and they actively engage with children online, and we've actually been acknowledged as one of the best councils in Queensland to actually offer that service to our community, which is great. The library's also engaged with the community through a home online book club and various other Facebook events as well. Council's attendance rate at the Gatton Childcare Centre for April was 74%, so even in line with COVID-19, it's good to see that children are still in attendance at the facility. We've received a draft document of the Plainland Structure Plan. So our strategic planning team has been working with Infinitum Partners who've been developing that. So we're ready to move into the next stage of some engagement in relation to that. And furthermore, I'll just bring to Council's attention that our statistics in our building area and also in our planning area still see that we're running steady at the number of applications that we're receiving. Certainly from a planning sense, we're still in line with similar figures that we experienced for the lodgement of development applications at this time last year. And we've seen an approximate 8% decline in plumbing activity across the region, but that's low in comparison to other local governments.
So, no questions from me, just comments, I guess. So, Anzac Day, yes, it was disappointing that we couldn't have the actual services, but it was very heartening that there was still a council presence to deliver the wreaths. Councillor Wilson did Gatton, Councillor Hagan did Forest Hill, Councillor Bella did Hatton Vale, Councillor Holstein did Withcott, Deputy Mayor did Murphy's Creek, and Councillor Kolszewski did Mama Creek, and I did Laidley and Helidon. So it was certainly nice to see that representation from council, just to acknowledge the day. The other one too, the support the local business. I guess too, the local chamber is doing the shop local, eat local, spend local, enjoy local, which council's a partner of. So it's another great initiative. And thank you very much, National Volunteers Week, that you acknowledge that. So that started Monday, finishes on Sunday. Also, we're Orange Wednesday, so that acknowledges the dedication to our SES staff. So that's our SES volunteers, so that's actually today. And I guess just more of an FYI in regards to the library. I have been invited to be on the Library Board of Queensland's Public Libraries Advisory Group. So I've let Nicole Kyler made her aware of that. So that's a really good thing for us as a regional council to be invited and to be part of that. It's really a great thing. Councillor Holston.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a couple of comments. Also on Anzac Day, I think though this year the changes where the RSL encouraged people to be in their driveways at 6 a.m, I think that was a fantastic initiative, and I would hope that going forward next year people would do that, then attend their local Anzac service. I think perhaps it may have even brought more people interested in what Anzac Day is about, and I just thought it was a really nice thing to see people out in their driveways where sometimes those people might have still been in bed. So I think particularly showing their children, getting the children out and getting out there in their driveway to acknowledge Anzac Day, I think was really important. And the fact that you ensured that elected members still lay a wreath at our Anzac Day at the memorials, I think that was really good too, because many people did mention that at different stages during the day they went to their local memorial just to be there and pay respects, you know. And obviously that went out throughout the day, so it was really nice to see that there were wreaths laid. And I know the Whitcott one, during the day different people came along and laid wreaths, because when the returned serviceman said he went to collect them, he said there were lots of different ones there, which was really nice to see that happen. I just want to make a comment on our library and the work that the ladies are doing in the online forums with the library. I just think they're absolutely fantastic. They're doing a terrific job, and if anybody hasn't yet gone on when they're doing that live, whether that's singing or reading stories, I think it's really worthwhile. They are interactive, and you can see where people are making comments and they're responding to people's comments while they're actually online. And I think, you know, maybe that will encourage more people to read, to do some of those things, and particularly the younger children, I think. That's a really good thing. That's probably in people stuck at home with their children who, during this time, may not necessarily have done any of that themselves. I think it's probably a bit of a relief too for some of the parents, and maybe it helps get them more interactive with their children, reading and the like. So I think that's a really good initiative that our library staff have done, and I just think hats off to the work that they're doing there, and I hope it continues post the COVID crisis.
COVID has certainly brought about some opportunities. There's been opportunities for the business and industry to reinvent themselves. Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Logan.
Yeah, just a quick comment to echo Councillor Holstein's words around the libraries and their social media online stuff. Bianca returned to work last week, which meant Jack had to go back to kindy for the first time doing this COVID stuff, and he was happy to go back. The only thing he was disappointed about going back to kindy was he wouldn't be able to do his Facebook story time at the library, so he was a bit devastated about that. So yeah, no, they're doing a great job, and the ladies are getting people, if you're watching, to put your child's name there, and they give them a shout out and stuff, and yeah, it's working really, really well.
Yeah, excellent. Councillor Hagan.
Yeah, just one thing before I do, I just want to acknowledge also what Councillor Olsen said about the councillors going out and laying wreaths in the Forest Hill community while they were social distancing, came past to just say that was a nice gesture of council to still turn up and lay that wreath on the road. The thing I want to see the extension for the approval, we had the approval for the extension on the detailed business case due to COVID with the water, and in here it says about round 2 engagement being not face-to-face but notices and things like that. We have had a discussion about that, as you're aware, that there's so much information still got to get out there, and you need that community one-on-one and that interaction with the farmers and others engaged. So it, as the business case has been extended, the time frame, we can use that and just push back that second round of engagement by, as restrictions ease, we can have 20 people or something in meetings and still get that important feedback from the community.
Oh, that's right. So that face-to-face engagement is certainly possible, and it will be just about the social distancing.
I've got a mover and a seconder, please. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, right. Just a few comments. It's great to see that the Plainland Structure Plan and the Gatton North MEIA study are both well underway. I think it shows now where Council's certainly moving into a much more future-orientated mindset in terms of trying to look at development and lay it out in a really responsible way. Feeding into that once again is the draft development manual as well, which is a really much needed documentation that outlines the requirements, what our expectations are for new infrastructure and what it will look like. And also noted was around the development of the Catholic school at Plainland. Our plumbing inspectors have been very, very busy out there, nearly on daily visits to ensure that everything that's occurring complies with our standards. So happy to move as well.
Excellent, great, thanks. So we have Councillor Bell, second by Councillor Holstein. All councillors in favour? Carried, thank you. 12.2 is the application for development permit for Forest Tour Fernville Road, Glenelg Road.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll defer the planning reports to the Acting Manager of Planning, Environment and Regulatory Services, Kim Callio.
Good afternoon, councillors. Through you, Madam Chair, this application is a reconfiguration of a lot, 5 lots into 8. The only reason this application is coming to you is because it's a very small area in the northeast corner of the site which has some very high value vegetation which is not being affected by the development, so normally this would be a code accessible application. There was one submission received to from the adjoining owner who was concerned about a driveway which will be going down the side of their property. Conditions have been included in the report, conditions 26 and 30, to seek to address this concern by erecting a 30-metre long screen fence and sealing approximately 50 metres of the driveway adjacent to their house. There's also conditions included to address the vegetation clearing that would be removed as a result of creating house sites on a number of those lots. So I'll take the report as read, councillors, and we've got Miriam Sharp here who prepared the report, our senior planner, to respond to any detailed questions.
Just one quick question. Because the small removal of a few trees, we're asking them to replace it. And the requirement is replacement trees must be in pots. Is that to specify the size of the trees we're supplying or something?
Through you, Madam Chair, generally that is so that they have a greater chance of survival. If they're in pots, they already are a little bit bigger, and it's easier to keep them alive.
Okay. My knowledge.
Okay, all right. Any other questions, comments? Got a mover? Moved by Councillor Hagan, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Lots of councillors in favour. Carried, thank you. 4.2, application for development permit, Shedwell Road, Blenheim.
This is an application for multiple dwellings. It's basically a second dwelling being established on this site. It has been brought to council again because there is a submission to this application, and the main issues raised by the objector related to traffic and how site distance was achieved. The surveyor quite rightly pointed out that the applicant's traffic report assumed a 60-kilometre speed environment on Shadwell Road, when in fact, as an unconstructed road, it is assumed to be a 100k speed environment, subject to drivers driving to safe conditions, as it's an unconstructed, unsigned road. So works have been done in dealing with this aspect, and we've been back to the applicant and had discussions through the engineers with IWS. Conditions have been included with regards to ensuring that the driveway is located in a safe location that has appropriate sight distances both to the north and south. So there's conditions 16 to 19, which talks about additional signage, vegetation clearing and the crossover. There's also condition 9, which is addressing the other aspect of the submitter's concerns with regards to privacy and overlooking. I do note that they are large blocks, and the submitter's house is some 180 metres from the site. I'll take the report as read, councillors, but I have Planning Officer Tanya Van Bale here, who prepared the report to take any detailed questions.
Questions, comments? Tammy?
Quick comment. Issues around the driveway access and sightlines. We had a really good cooperative approach with the landholder. We were able to address those concerns through, like I said, through a bit of signage and through some removal of a couple of trees which cut back distances. So I was really happy that we have that, rather than sort of line in the sand approach, that we were flexible and able to work with them to bring about a good outcome.
Are you happy to move that?
Certainly, yeah.
Councillor Donnelly, seconder. Councillor Cook, all councillors in favour. Carried, thank you. Great, thanks, Tammy. Item 12.4, application for a development permit, 295 Woodlands Road, Gatton.
Through you, Madam Chair, this application is generated as a result of significant compliance action that's been occurring over the last 4 odd years. It is material change of use for a code accessible application, so would not normally be brought to council for a decision, as there are delegations in place, but given the history of this development, we wanted to bring this to your attention for your decision. We have recommended approval subject to conditions. It is a home-based business for the electrical services. It has been significantly downscaled from its earliest days. We have conditions which have been applied consistently across the region in terms of dealing with home-based businesses. I would point out to councillors our obligation in assessing the application is to deal with the application before us and not perhaps focusing on the applicant or the history of the site, so that's an important factor to consider. It's also a code accessible application, which means it's a bound assessment, so council is obligated to assess it against the codes. We're also obligated to approve the application if it can be conditioned to or does comply with the codes. So that's the context in which this report is brought to you. And Miriam Sharp is back to take any questions that you have on it.
Gratefully reminded us of our obligations. It's very clear. There was some questions, so Deputy Mayor, earlier you spoken about wanting some clarification.
Well, actually, there's one there, number 9 in the use requirements. No more than one delivery vehicle is allowed at any one time, but the delivery vehicle must be no greater than a small, rigid vehicle. So I just wonder, policing that's very hard. Like, you ring up, you order something, you don't know what vehicle's coming to make the delivery. How are they expected to comply to that? Is that realistic? You know what I mean? I just find that hard, you don't know who's delivering, if it's a skid, a colour, or whatever it is, and what are we classing as a small rigid vehicle? I mean, I just think it's a little bit flexible, very hard for them to be able to comply with that. They don't know how the delivery's coming,
Yep. Through you, Madam Chair, certainly take the point in terms of the applicant's control about vehicles coming to the site, but in ordering their products, they will be aware that there are some requirements as to what can come to the site. We don't want semi-trailers, very large-scale vehicles coming to the site, because again, the home-based business code is about protecting the amenity of the surrounding area. The idea is that it's not going to be anything further generated to the site than you would typically get to a dwelling. So very large-scale vehicles are intended to be cut out from coming to the site, but I do take the point that some of it may be beyond the applicant's control, but it is a business that will have its distributors, that it will be ordering or getting deliveries to the site for the electrical supplies, where they can identify.
He can stipulate that on his order that must be delivered in a specific size, I suppose. And I suppose the basis of this is home base, and what a home based business is. And we're talking about one person, two people that live there and one employee. We're talking about only small delivery vehicles. We're talking about no outdoor storage. We're talking about only 3 vehicles, and we're only talking about all this stuff. Yet the business, the way it operates now, and I understand the historical stuff and everything, but the way the business operates now, it reads there's 6 employees and they've got this and they've got that, and this is how they have, and all that sort of stuff. And I understand that we have to assess it, and there's the conditions, and they've got to abide by the conditions. I want businesses to be able to set up wherever they can set up, and wherever it's aesthetically pleasing to them without wrecking the neighbourhood and all that sort of stuff. But I just can't, I cannot see how this business can operate under these conditions. I don't understand how it can. And I'm not against the fella having a business, and I'm not against the fella from operating his business from home, and I'm not against it at all. But it just seems very, I understand he's applied for that, we give him his conditions, and he's got to abide by those conditions, but I just can't see how it can. It just seems a little bit, I don't know what you call it, but we've got all of these conditions where this is how his business operates, but he's got to bring it back to this. And I just don't know how it would be possible. But as you say, we can't worry about the historical stuff, we've got to go forward. But my issue is the amount of compliance then that we have to go through to make sure that it complies. And to do that, I suppose if we don't rubber stamp this to say, yes, there it is, you've got the compliance and you can do that, well then he can go and fight it and argue it, and it'll cost us more money to go to court because we didn't allow him to do it. Like, it just seems very contradictory, this whole report, and I'm no planning expert, as you all know, but it just seems a bit strange to me. It just seems very all over the place, you know?
Yeah. So I've got a response for that before I ask Councillor Holstein and Councillor Hagan.
And I'm not against the fellow's business being there to a degree, but we've got to have, it's got to fit that box, and it's got to, the neighbourhood's got to be here, it's got to handle all the planning things. I understand all that, but it just seems that this is just, I don't know how they're going to comply to it.
Chair, Madam Chair, certainly agree with many of those comments that you've made, Councillor Cook. The applicant, as you said, did determine to decide to apply for a home-based business. They had the choice through the court order to apply for a service trade, but they've chosen for the home-based business. We are certainly scaling it back to what is appropriate for a home-based business.
And the service trade cannot be set up on that business because it's not, what do you call it?
Compliant.
It's not compliant in that development.
It would be an overdevelopment of what we would see in the residential area.
So he doesn't have the choice of doing that. He can only do a home-based business on that property there, that's right. His trade service would have to be another place, that's right.
Yeah, the court did determine he could apply, and council would assess that on its merits, which would have been an impact assessable application. But I probably come back to the point of being a code accessible application, there are certain constraints in how we can deal with this application. So there is a presumption of approval if it can be conditioned to comply with provisions of the planning scheme. The codes that we have in our current planning schemes are quite scant in terms of the provisions, but what we put in the codes and in the conditions will address all of those aspects, which, as you do rightly point out, will become a compliance issue if the applicant chooses to run his business in contravention of those conditions. Typically, we would be getting complaints from the neighbours if they are contravening those conditions, and we would then undertake our investigation processes and look for evidence from the neighbours, which is normally how we obtain those sorts of details of what's actually happening on site.
So can you confirm with me, the service trade business, he could not apply for that on that property?
No, he could apply.
Yes?
He could apply, but
he didn't apply for that?
He didn't apply,
No, yeah.
and to be frank, it's unlikely that he would have had support, depending on how he was going to put it together. I can't preempt what might have been, but you can apply, but he would have had probably a much lesser chance or opportunity, and we would have been able to assess it against the entire scheme and made our case for the assessment against the entire scheme.
Yeah, because when you read it here, the service trade means premises used for trade or service, including tradesmen's yards, workshops and depots, and premises made for use for ancillary storage of goods connected to the which is exactly what we're talking about with the business is, and you think, well, yeah, and the home business is conducted with just the small stuff, so yeah, it's just very contradictory to me that to think, well, I just can't see how it can work, but anyway.
Councillor Holstein and Councillor Hagan.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you to Kim. It says in here that there's 2 shipping containers for the business. Does that mean all other shipping containers have been removed?
They've been removed. There's only 4 there.
Through you, Madam Chair, there's 6 containers left. 2 of those are specifically to be used for the home-based business. The other ones have been approved as a Class 10, which is really just general storage, which can be used in association just with the dwelling house.
Okay, can I ask, you say they've been approved, and I think I read it was by a private certifier.
Correct.
Do we know, are they compliant though? Are they up off the ground a certain distance, or are they on a concrete base so that we don't have a rabbit issue there at any time?
Those other shipping containers, we have not undertaken any compliance inspections of those.
Well, I think we need to, because that is an issue in our region at the moment, and they need to comply with the rules so that we don't have issues, because shipping containers are one of the things that rabbits love living under.
I guess the remark that I would make there is that they are Class 10 storage containers, and therefore they don't need to comply with RTLPI for flood regulation. And these ones, because they are associated with the business, they do need to comply with the flood regulation, and therefore we have asked for them to be elevated.
But all shipping containers have to be, regardless of what they're used for, was my understanding.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll take the question on notice, Councillor Holstein. However, I will say that a private certifier in issuing an approval would need to make sure that it complied. So we have a presumption that should a private certifier have issued an approval for a Class 10, being the building, that it would comply with all necessary requirements and regulations. But I'm happy to take that on notice, and we'll check that.
Please do. I think that's important. And look, I think we need to be supportive of people wanting to, have a business, they're employing people, having a go. However, they can't be doing it in a way that may adversely affect their neighbours, because nobody wants to see their neighbourhood life ruined by somebody doing the wrong thing. Now, if this particular business keeps within the boundaries of their planning approval, if this goes through, well, happy days. There should not be any complaints, I would suspect. But that would be up to them to make sure they do the right thing.
Yeah, my concerns are very similar to the Deputy Mayor's, and Kim's answered most of it anyway, that I thought it's strange he's got 6 staff, but he's applying for a home-based business without 2. And that's conditioned, that's what he's applied for. He obviously knows what it means. I just find it strange that he's applied for something that doesn't fit his model. So that could be some compliance issues down the track, but that's what he's asked for. As long as it's conditioned and he follows it, I can see that. So I just think it's that compliance issue we might be dealing with. The other one was on that vehicle size coming in. Is there a way to just change that definition? Because I have what's considered a medium rigid vehicle, and it's no bigger than a truck that a landscape yard uses to deliver stuff, so that goes into every household there is. And most vehicles would be around that, what's classed as medium rigid size, that's doing a lot of deliveries. So I just think, is there a way you can change that definition?
Pose a question like, are we being unreasonable because of what we have known previously? I'm conscious of Kim's advice about the obligations that we actually have, the application that's in front of us. Just wondering if we're being unreasonable. That's my question to Kim.
That's taking some of that away. That's a
Yeah. That's helping the applicant deal with this truck size. Yeah. Probably MR is medium rigid, which most smaller delivery trucks would be MR, medium rigid. Small rigids are a lot smaller. MRs, most of your delivery trucks would be,
Yeah, sorry, Madam Mayor, about 5 metres long, 6 metres long would be the tray on medium rigid, which is not real big. Most utes and trailers going in and out of yards would be about the same length.
Through you, Madam Mayor, a vehicle of that size would probably fit within keeping the potential impacts on the neighbours down. So we'd be happy to amend that to change that to a medium vehicle. The main idea was to keep it as low as possible in terms of what's coming to the site. I must say I'm not exactly sure the nature of his deliveries in terms of his electrical equipment. He does have staff who will also be picking up supplies, so it will be just those deliveries that will be coming to his site, and they are only coming at a limited number of times to the site, no more than 2 deliveries per day. So it is a very low incidence of traffic. So in order to provide a bit more flexibility to the applicant, I think we can definitely change that to a medium.
And just one more thing to follow that, the truck size I have seen plumbers and electrical deliveries where, yes, it is only maybe small boxes of items, but when they head out from the depot, they have 20 deliveries on that size truck. So,
Further questions, comments, and that's with that change and the take on notice, the question in regards to the complaint.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I could just make a final comment. Given the history of this particular site, the previous compliance action, we will be actively compliancing the conditions of this approval to ensure compliance. If we do receive complaints or identify matters of non-compliance, we'll be following those matters through the normal legislative process.
I'm happy to move it, and I probably just want to reiterate what Councillor Holstein said is, look, we want business, we want small business operating, we want to do that, but you just need to comply with it and everything's okay, but it's got to be in the right place. So.
Moved by Councillor Cook, got a seconder. Councillor Hagan, all councillors in favour. That's carried, thank you. 12.5, proposal to make temporary local planning instrument 2020.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll defer this report to Annette Doherty, the Acting Manager of Economic Development and Community.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Council has a current temporary local planning instrument to regulate development within the flood areas. There are a few issues identified with that document, so a new instrument has been drafted and has been presented to Council for consideration and for a decision to make the temporary local planning instrument, or TLPI. The proposed document is much more concise than the existing TLPI that Council is currently using. At the moment, the TLPI addresses independently the Gatton Shire Planning Scheme and the Laley Shire Planning Scheme. we're actually looking at having a single document that would cover all parts of the region. Some other changes to bring to Council's attention is currently the TLPI doesn't apply to development within areas that are zoned industrial or commercial. The original intent was actually to exempt industrial and commercial development, not development within those zoned areas. So we've listed all specific land uses within the Gatton Shire Planning Scheme and Laidley Shire Planning Schemes that would be exempt from the TLPI. I'll just point out to councillors that service stations and car washes are not included within that list because of the large amount of fuel that is involved in that particular land use, though that type of development would still be referred to council or assessed by council under the TLPI. Another change, currently any extension to a dwelling house within a flood area, an existing dwelling house within a flood area, would require assessment under the TLPI. We're proposing that the trigger for assessment under the TLPI would only be if the extension exceeds 50% of the existing gross floor area. This is consistent with the state legislation, the Queensland Development Code, and it's also in recognition that an extension to a dwelling house doesn't necessarily correspond to an increase in people living within that dwelling house and therefore an increased risk to life and property. And currently the TLPI applies to Class 10 buildings and structures only when those buildings are being used for the storage of agricultural or potentially hazardous chemicals. There's quite a difficulty around defining exactly what agricultural or potentially hazardous chemicals means, particularly in terms of what quantity would meet the threshold. Also, under the Queensland Development Code, all Class 10 building and structures are exempt from assessment against flood requirements. So again, we're proposing consistency with that instrument. And also, as industrial and commercial development is assessed against the TLPI, and that type of development would often have hazardous chemicals in excess of that which you would associate with a standard dwelling house, as an example. We don't see that there's a huge risk to extending exemption to all Class 10 buildings. So basically, other changes made are to reflect changes in terminology in the state planning legislation. So it now reflects the new terminology that came in with the Planning Act in 2017. So if Council does decide to make the proposed TLPI, the next step in the process would be for Council to refer the document to the Minister for his consideration. The Minister considers the document against the state interests and the state legislation, and if satisfied that those requirements are met, he will then advise Council that he has approved Council to adopt that instrument. So once we hear back from the Minister, another report will be presented to Council for consideration with a recommendation to adopt the new instrument. So do councillors have any questions?
Happy to move. Yeah.
Thanks, Annette. Anything that's user-friendly, removes duplication and makes the life easier for us, for our community, I think it's just fabulous. So I think we're on the right path. Thank you. So moved by Councillor Bella, seconded by Councillor Korczewski. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you, councillors. 12.6 is Development Incentives Infrastructure Charges Policy.
Through you, Madam Chair, you'll see that you've got a report here which is basically updating your existing policy to recognise a change to the adopted infrastructure charges resolution, which was adopted by Council in August last year. So it's important that the policy is updated to reflect that most recent adopted infrastructure charges resolution to ensure that any development applications that are lodged over since that resolution has been in place has the benefit of the development incentives policy. So that resolution back in August last year was put in place to recognise some inconsistencies between Gatton and Laidley in terms of the charge levels, mostly in relation to, for example, in Laidley, a vet hospital and medical and paramedical centre was at a higher rate than the same sort of use in the Gatton area, planning scheme area, and similarly indoor entertainment place of worship was a higher rate in the Gatton area compared to Laidley. So it was just fixing those anomalies back in August, so it's important that that is now reflected as the document referred to in the development incentives policy for infrastructure charges. So that's what this report is about.
If I might make a comment, just councillors may recall, and Amanda will recall that there was discussion, well, maybe 2 or 3 months ago about not having infrastructure charges incentives policy and perhaps removing it. And that was going to be looked at, but then essentially COVID's come along and we have received some requests from developers for infrastructure charges reductions, and we felt that it was probably prudent to leave this in place so that council is able to consider those just in case you want to. I think still the intent is that this is not necessarily a good way of, no, I think the intent is still that there is a better way of doing business around infrastructure charges and with developers, but for the moment, and there have been recommendations from the Urban Industry Development Group and others that council should consider reductions in infrastructure charges to facilitate and stimulate development. So hence it's still in place for the moment and also tidied up.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. Questions, comments? Got a mover? Councillor Holstein, second by Councillor Hagan. All those councillors in favour? Karen, thank you. Community Environmental Grant, round 2.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have a report tabled before Council today to approve funding to Mary Field's Vision to Reality, a land conservation project for an amount of $3,000. Councillor Hagan, given that you were on that panel, just wondered if you'd like to make a comment. If not, I'll take the report as being read.
Why not? Yeah, I'm happy to move this, and it was only one application. It fitted all the guidelines, and it's good what they're doing up there since they've taken over, and this just keeps that process going, and it's managing the land around the area, which we'd hope would happen when they took this over. So it's easy when there's one application. It fits.
Yeah, I agree too. I've been up there a couple of times too. There was some great work out there, so it's nice to see. Move up, you happy to move that? Yep, moved by Councillor Hagan, seconded by Councillor Holstein. Let's count, you got it?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Click on it.
All those councillors in favour? And it's carried, thank you. 13.1 Group Manager Infrastructure Monthly Report. Right, Angelo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note the report is read, and through the Chair, as usual, I'd like to make a couple of highlights out of the report, if I may. Councillor, stepping through on page 301, as you can see, the weather's certainly turned on the dry side at the moment. That's helped us get on top of our mowing program, especially in the parks and gardens area. We would like to welcome a bit of rain, mind you. It's getting a bit brown in those regards. Moving on to page 302, in the buildings area of our facilities branch, we note the demolition of the Gatton squash courts has now been completed, and the area turfed. It's currently cordoned off, and it will be for several weeks until we can just keep watering and getting that turf to catch. But can I say that area has really opened up our behind the council chambers here. It looks great. Moving on there in the buildings area, as noted, we've been successful in receiving a grant through the Building Our Regions Fund from the Queensland Government to the order of $866,714. So that's a great outcome for this organisation, and great to be able to put that money into one of our marquee facilities here in the council area. Moving on to page 303, our infrastructure planning area. The commentary on the Toowoomba Second Range Crossing project. I note we've reached an agreement with the contractor who built the Second Range Crossing in terms of compensation relating to damages incurred to our haulage road network, our local roads in that area. I further note, just below that Inland Rail project, we're continuing to work from a technical point of view with the ARTC representatives, putting together our requirements which will go to market for the bidders of the another great project which will happen in our area. Moving on to page 304, I'll make some commentary around our capital works projects on the go at the moment. Belmore Drive construction works in Withcott. They are looking to be completed in early June. Certainly a good asset in the making there from our teams, revamping some aged infrastructure there. Moving on to page 305, again the top listing of projects. We've commenced works on the Murphy's Creek Footpath. They're well underway. They're due for completion late June, which will certainly assist in conductivity, particularly from the school to some of our urban areas in the Murphy's Creek area. Summer Home Road project with the upgrade of the culvert, that's well underway as well and due for completion late in June. We've also commenced work at the front of Hatton Vale School to improve parking arrangement there for the mums and dads dropping kids off and picking up of an afternoon. So certainly another good asset for our community being built there. Moving on to then page 306, the top there's a list of 2 black spot projects which we've received funding for in next year's program. They're well underway in terms of design and will be delivered in the first half of next financial year. Councillors, Madam Mayor, happy to take questions.
I'm happy to move, Madam Chair, and obviously there's a lot of work being underway, so it's good to see some of that actually happening and the amount of external funding we're getting, which is a huge plus. I do think we do need to be looking at a lot of our line marking across the region because it's at a stage where in many areas it does need to be renewed, and hopefully that will get attended to soon. And good job, Angelo. We're actually getting some of our roads, getting close to getting some of our roads back from 2011 actually done, which will be a big plus for our region, and hopefully that will continue.
That's good. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
It's interesting that Councillor Holstein mentioned line marking. I was just wondering, Angelo, in the status of the project now complete, does that exclude line marking? Because I know the Robinson Road project for Laidley says project is complete, but the line marking is still yet to be done on that one.
Through the Chair, Councillor Wilson, there's most likely some minor works that have probably been missed there that certainly will be picked up. So predominantly most projects are complete. The odd, in particular, putting together packages to try and get scale economies. Those very small amounts will be picked up in due course before the end of financial year. Most of those projects have, if any, very small amount of line marking, whole bars to give way or stop points.
We've got Councillor Holstein, got a seconder. Councillor Cook. All those councillors in favour? Carried. Thank you. 30.2 applications for funding programs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note the report is read. Very self-explanatory. There's several projects which we wish to put forward under various funding programs. Basically, they're to assist in basically making our network on the safer side in terms of some of the truck movements, in particular some of the heavy vehicle safety productivity program projects. And there's also a project in there for school transport infrastructure program related to our high school here in Gatton. I will note that project is 100% requested for funding by the state. Traditionally that would be a 50-50, but we feel given the issues there adjoining the school, that certainly putting a project forward requesting 100% funding. We have, since the drafting of this report, talking with the school about progressing a angled parking option as opposed to the parallel parking option which is noted in the report. Certainly we'll come back to council with outcomes of that, but at this point in time we're looking to promote the parallel if it warrants. If not, it'll be angled with still 100% funding being requested from the state.
So Anglo Marn Bridge, the replacement of that, is the elephant in the room, I guess. So it was considered, however it hasn't gone up. Can you clarify a little bit more on that, please?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. As noted in the report, we've put up an option to apply for strengthening works and improvement works to Cranbridge as opposed to Marn Bridge. The quantum of money needed for Marn Bridge at this point in time, given the other infrastructure needs that we have around the council area, would certainly, it's put that down the list to be very frank. We've actually put the Marn Bridge up on 2 separate occasions I know of here whilst being at council. On both occasions it's been unsuccessful because of the benefit cost analysis. Due to the go-around being, the detour being of a small detour, the benefit cost analysis is not high compared to a lot of other projects which normally compete for that money in that program.
Thank you. Councillor Holstein and Councillor Wilson.
I'm happy to move, but just some comments. It's pleasing to see about the heavy vehicle issues and those looking to be addressed in the near future if we can get successful funding. I think, given our region, that's hugely important for our transport industry. For Cranbridge, I'm fully supportive of that. There's no other all-weather access in that area. So if you're in a time of heavy rain, there is simply no other access. So for me, that's a safety issue and it's an access issue, which obviously needs to have priority. So I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Yep, Councillor Wilson.
Just a correction on page 309, the executive summary, the last paragraph there, it says the total value of the projects 2.8 million. All programs are 50/50 funded from council and the Australian State Government. It's actually not, because we've got the Highview Avenue one there that's actually not funded by council, so I probably shouldn't say that.
That's good.
Just, if I could, just on that, on the school transport infrastructure, Highview Avenue parallel parking. Angela, you spoke to the school and talked about the angle parking, but the preferred one was parallel, did you say?
We've had serious conversations with the school regarding progressing the current proposal of parallel parking.
Yeah.
There's, depending on the scope of the project, which we're looking at the moment, the school is open for potentially a parallel parking option, angle parking option, which would require approachment on their land.
Yeah.
But again, this project we have here is what we're looking at present. Should the application of a angle parking proposal for the school's agreement, we certainly progress with that.
Yeah, well, to me, the issue is if you go to parallel parking, I don't think you're achieving anything. You're not getting any more parks. So I don't see the benefit in doing it. If you go parallel parking, you're not going to get any more parking. You're going to probably get them across away off the road a little bit and get people away, but you're not going to get any more parking. I don't know that there's any great benefit to that, to spend that amount of money to get no more parking. I understand it might give you a little bit more room. I think the school has to come forward with some land to make it a viable option. And I understand it's not our money, but it doesn't matter whose money it is. There's no point in spending money where you're not getting a better benefit out of it, I don't think. So I think we've really got to have a look and push the school to go the other option where you're going to end up with more parking.
If I may, through the chair.
The current option, Councillor Cook, is to widen the road. Agree. You're not increasing the number of parking per se. It's more increasing the width of that road to allow two-way traffic in periods where that road is parked out. The option we're pursuing being angle parking would certainly increase the parking opportunities along that road, and happy to progress that option in lieu of the parallel option put forward here on this council report.
Yeah, it's on the same lines as Councillor Cook. If we do progress to the parallel, to the angle parking, another option, how does that affect the funding?
There'll be most likely an increase in the dollars requested. The mix will still be intention to be requesting 100% funded from the state in regards to that project moving forward.
Got a second that? Moved by Councillor Holstein. Did you second it? Yeah. Okay, second by Councillor Cook. Did you have another comment to make, Councillor Hogan? No? Okay, which by all those councillors in favour. And it's carried, thank you. 13.3 is Amos Road, the land acquisition.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know the report is read, very self-explanatory. Through the Chair, if I could make a few comments. This is to allow the delivery of a project in next year's budget relating to the upgrading of Amos Road. This links with an overall funding proposal put forward by the Toowoomba Regional Council through a BOR funding program, and this is our component being the upgrading of Amos Road.
Councillor Hogan, any questions, comments? No, voting on 13.3 is carried. Thank you. 13.4, forest of pit by storage shed and the shade structures. It's pretty self-explanatory, but Angela.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note the report is read, and through the Chair, happy to take any questions.
Questions, comments? No. Councillor Wilson, happy to move it. Got a second, please. Councillor Cook. All those councillors in favour, the recommendation is carried. Thank you, councillors. 14.1, 14.2 are both items for information. 14.1 is defensive urban utilities, monthly report for April 2020, and 14.2 is the 2020 audit and interim report. They are items of information. Have you got any comments to make on that, Mr. CEO, or just take them as read?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I don't have any comments on that. I'm happy to take them as read, or if you want to ask any questions around the interim audit report, Chief Financial Officer is available.
Take it as known. So once I move that 14.1, 14.2 received. Going to move it, Councillor Polszewski, Councillor Hagan, seconded. All those councillors in favour. It's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. That ends the items for open. Okay, so councillors will move back into open. We've been closed to discuss 15.1 Lockyer Brisbane Racing Collaborative report. In close because public discussion would likely to prejudice the interests of the local government or someone else, or enable us to gain financial advantage. So 15.1, the recommendations will receive the recommendation from the Lockyer Valley Equine and Racing Collaborative and endorse the concept design for the Lockyer Valley Equine Precinct. Got a mover, Councillor Holstein, got a seconder, Councillor Cook. All those councillors in favour, and it's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. There are no further items.